Hello, dear friends. We continue our series from the Secrets of the Eternal Book, and we're witnessing how, before our very own eyes, secrets are becoming revealed with us, as always, the Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman. Hello, everyone. Hello. We are studying the Pentateuch. We're getting deeper and deeper into it, and today we're in the Garden of Eden. Bereshit, episode number 3. And the following story takes place in the Garden of Eden. I'll start reading, and as always, we will commentate. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. So it's a pretty significant life-changing event. Yeah, man's ego is separated into a separately existing entity called wife. Meaning, we're not talking about men or women. We can talk about that too separately, but already as a projection of that in our world. But in Kabbalah, we're talking about one person who consists of all the existing qualities in our world, and the creator exists in him too. Because what is the creator? It's what I feel as my creator, and what I don't feel, which is above myself, does not enter my senses, and I can't talk about it. I don't know what that is. I talk about what I do feel. Meaning you, the surrounding world, animals, plants, space, myself, the way I feel myself, it's all inside of me. Now the Torah, the Pentateuch, tells us about this general structure of a person. What I feel, what I perceive inside of me is called creation. This creation is my inner structure, and if I change, I'll feel a different world. If I'll expand, deepen into my feelings, my thoughts, perceptions, sensations, into my awareness, then naturally the world will change in my eyes. So when a person begins his development, he begins feeling that the force that has created him and controls him somehow divides him into two parts, male and female, meaning in me appear a man and a woman, or a man and a woman. Two opposite parts. Right. The bestowing part is called man, and the receiving part is called woman, meaning it's not positive or negative or derogatory in any way. So women shouldn't get offended. Of course not. We're talking about nature, about creation, and men in our world are even more egoistic than women. This is not what Kabbalah speaks about. It simply speaks about two basic qualities, properties in man, which are the qualities of reception and bestowal. And they exist together in a person, and as he develops, he starts differentiating them inside himself. And therefore, the creation of this second part was made from a rib, in Hebrew coming from the word tzel, shadow. And it really says that he casted sleep over man, meaning that at first a person enters a state where he doesn't exactly understand what is going on with my ego. He enters this hazy kind of state. It's like a threshold, a necessary state before awareness. Every time that we don't understand something, we always get somehow confused, disconnected from reality. We enter a vague, confused state, and then it clears up. And so it goes from semi-conscious to conscious, semi-conscious to conscious. And this is how our attainment goes in our world too. And this state is called sleep? Yes. A sleep is practically the disappearance of the previous state of cognition. And this is also what happens to us. A day passes and we fall asleep, and we go through a state of preparation for the next state, and the next realization, and the next understanding. What does casted asleep mean? It means that the previous understanding of my state disappears, meaning that I'm a simple, normal, a bit egoistic person, and suddenly, in me, begins a very clear understanding of my structure that's already divided into two parts. And the appearance of the second part comes like from a shadow, like an inversed copy of myself, and that's why it's called tzel. So it's not a rib. No, it's just translated that way. This word both means rib in Hebrew, and also in Russian you have such words that mean absolutely different things or objects, but are spelled the same. Meaning in origin, they're completely different. In Hebrew, it's tsela. Right. It means a copy of the entire man that was created. In Kabbalah, what we study about it is that the Malchut appears from the Tiferet of Zeranpin, that's called the rib, meaning in his spiritual structure, such a part is really called rib, but actually this rib has such a quality that reflects the entire essence of man, and therefore, from his egoistic reflection, the receiving form, this is called the female part, that's now separated from man, and he starts perceiving it separately. For us, what it means is that I start feeling myself divided into two parts. The one part, in it somewhere exist very clear qualities of the Creator, of bestowal, attainment, expansion, and so on. And the other part is the female part, receiving, dependent. It is a part with the help of which I also advance and acquire. It's a serious egoistic part of mine, without which it's impossible to advance. And precisely by these two forces do we advance, the right and the left, the as if positive and negative. And I start differentiating this inside myself, and that's called the creation of woman. And men and women in our world, what is that then? In our corporeal world, that's how it's reflected, because the woman, in relation to a man, is considered the aiding, helping part, and the man can't exist without that. We see that Adam can't continue advancing, but with the help of the female part that was separated from him, and thanks to this separation, does his further development occur, the development of humanity, all the degrees of attainment, until we reach our highest most state, specifically because this female part was separated and it was made against him. As it says, I have made her help against you. As if she's opposed, unpleasant, inverse to your qualities, but this is how she helps you, and you can't advance without her. And the following degrees are what they give birth to, they have children, etc. This is the development of their next degree, meaning the next degree of man's development are his children, like in our world. I'd like to ask something about this world. A man has to get married, of course. Without that, he will not advance. And besides, the souls can be corrected only in our world. And from generation to generation, the same souls return like a row of soldiers. This is how they exist. And from one generation to the next, they incarnate in new bodies, and in the next generation the same, etc. And without a woman, this process is impossible. And not only that, but all generations expand and divide into more male and female bodies, and accordingly, that one soul is divided into more and more male and female parts, and that's how they advance. The soul is one. At first, yes. Afterwards, it's divided into two, male and female, and after that, each of these parts divide into many more parts. Suppose there are 8 billion people in the world, about 60% women, 40% men. So what can we say about this? Man has to get married, because Adam, the male quality, in and of itself cannot advance without the female quality. The female quality is connected to and completely dependent on the male part, because it's the quality of reception and can receive only from above, and receives her fulfillment only through the male part. And the male part, as independent as it might seem, self-sufficient, but it can't exist without a woman in this world. We see that a man without a woman, he's not established, he can't advance. We see that men even are controlled by women. Yeah, everything that a man achieves in this world, it's because the woman pushes him to. She as if pushes him from home, and he advances. Were it not for that, he'd play around all life long and would not advance. So, just to complete the topic, does a woman have to get married? No, she doesn't. It's not mandatory for her spiritual advancement. Because since she is made out of man, nonetheless, any female part in humanity, in creation, receives her nourishment from the male part. But, as it says, that a woman is willing to give 9/10 of everything that she has to give it to the man in order to belong to the man, and only 1/10 to leave for herself. This is the measure to which she's fulfilled by being connected to a man. And when a man connects to a woman, he fulfills only 1/10 of his. So a woman is fulfilled by 90%, and a man only by 10%. And so, unfortunately, in our world, this is what creates the deviation in the relations between men and women. But of course, if we correctly understand and use this state, then we actually discover, reveal the correct dependence between us, and then we see that on part of nature, because creator and nature are one and the same, as we say, then on part of nature, there's no disbalance here, but actually, thanks to this disbalance, can we correctly complete each other and advance step by step. Imagine they would have remained in the Garden of Eden. That would have been good. Not at all. They would have remained as two undeveloped creatures without even understanding that they're like little children, picking apples, pears, and they wouldn't worry about anything. So your main problem is suffering. May that disappear. But we're not talking about development then. So basically, if a woman had not revealed that egoism that has been revealed further through her, I feel we're coming to that, then Adam would have remained little, like in a dream. He wouldn't have even awoken. Is that so bad? Plenty of people would like to just fall asleep and not to feel all of this suffering that's piling up. There's no way back. We're in a program that's run by nature. We're obligated to reach our final and perfect state. And therefore, we see that all of these actions are purposeful, predefined, pre-calculated, mandatory, and that everything is already within us, within our genes, within our hormones. It's the same way like we reveal today that if a person steals, it's because he has a certain gene, or if someone's a drug addict or a murderer, or the other way around. It's all because of our inner predispositions. And so, the very same way, we have to understand that our entire advancement is predetermined in advance. And we only need to understand, acknowledge this program, and in the best possible, easiest, softest way to realize it. So to surrender. Yes, but not to simply surrender. It's to understand, discern, go along with it. I'd even say anticipate it. To precede the suffering, not to wait for it to push you from behind. Right. Then the man said, "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore a man leaves his father and his mother," meaning the upper forces that have created him. All of this is felt in a single person. These are the mother and the father. Yes, these two forces exist in him, and they divided man into these two parts, Adam and Eve, and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. This depends on the person himself. How does he do it? Can he, in this world, create such a correct union between his egoism on the one hand and his aspiration to advance on the other, for it to really be as one? You mean the qualities of bestowal and egoism? Yes. When all of his egoistic qualities start working in bestowal, and then he aspires forward and rises above our world. So the ego is like fuel for a car, right? Yeah? Even in our world. If a woman had not looked after the house, created comfort, gave birth to children, cooked, washed, cleaned, and everything, we men would remain in caves. You like that? Yeah, could be. One more thing that I'd like to clarify. I, the reader who's reading the Pentateuch, as I advance in my reading, I start feeling that these two forces, man and woman, exist in me. Yes, if you separate them inside yourself, if you're doing your inner work, inner analysis, you start separating yourself then into different forces that are divided into two clear parts. And in the meantime, what is it? These are two parts that are correctly combined between them, out of which you're starting to create your future state, begetting children. And then it says, and the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. It means that the egoism, which was actually the opposite, was not revealed yet. Both he and his egoistic part have not yet compared themselves with the upper force that they have to become like. And so, because they're still concealed from the upper force, therefore, they didn't feel this sense of separation from the upper force called shame. It's not shame because we're naked. It's shame because my ego works in me in an open, blunt way, and I don't even feel it. Meaning, the next degree is where I start feeling that my ego is evil. But for this, I have to see some kind of standard of good. So the next degree is where they discover this. Still, I want to ask about shame. When am I not ashamed? When is man not ashamed? Man is never ashamed. Really? It happens that I'm ashamed of something. Why should I be ashamed of my nakedness? I'm no worse than an animal. And, as it says, down with the shame, 100 years ago in Soviet Russia, you remember that movement of free love? Yeah, free love. People walked naked outside and so on. And today, too, there are many such societies. In principle, it's only conventionalities. That's it. There's nothing else about it. What shame means here, and may we feel this shame ourselves, and may mankind feel it, it's the recognition of our egoistic lowliness. What egoists we are, how we want to use the entire world for our petty and tiny fulfillments, to feel that there's something evil in me. Yeah? That for the sake of a tiny fulfillment, I'm willing to sacrifice the entire world. And for me, it's not even a sacrifice. I get pleasure if I do it. I use them only in order to fulfill myself, even if it's only a bit, and that's it. And why do animals feel no shame? Because they don't relate to the world from the point of view of to enjoy it. They're simply executing the program of creation. They use the world in order to exist and never more than what they need in order to exist. An animal never takes more than that, whereas man, it's not enough for him to simply fulfill himself with necessities, but he wants to swallow the entire world. Meaning an animal doesn't use anyone or anything to its detriment. No, but man feels his pleasure in suppressing others. So when a lion eats a gazelle, he doesn't think about doing anything bad or good to it. He simply needs his 20 kilograms of protein. And when a person uses someone else, he exploits him. Wants to use him, yes. He uses him internally, wants to subordinate him. This is the higher pleasure that he gets out of it. It's better if we eat each other. Now, the serpent was more subtle than any other wild creature that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God say, 'You shall not eat of any tree of the garden?' And the woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but God said, You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.'" The serpent is the lowest degree of the ego that is starting to awaken, and a woman doesn't symbolize the ego. She's a normal, so to speak, egoistic part of Adam in relation to Adam. She receives, and he gives. Here, there's an absolute symbiosis between them. They're like a copy of each other. And after this, the next egoistic part arises that's directed towards using the other in order to humiliate them, etc. In short, to use others. That's the serpent. That is the serpent. That part is opposed to the upper force, to the property of bestowal. That is, they're Adam and Eve. The Creator, the absolutely altruistic force of love and bestowal, stands behind Adam. The strongest egoistic force, which is exactly directed against the Creator, rises behind Eve. So they're Adam and Eve, and behind them, the Creator and the serpent. So the serpent nonetheless acts through a woman, through Eve. Yes, through some minimum desire to receive, perceive, advance, expand, and so on. Whereas for Adam, the Garden of Eden was enough. She wants to continue developing. Therefore, in this part of man's desire for future development, this egoistic growth appears. It's like, I want to get along in this world. I want to do something in a good, normal way. You start doing it, and once I do, I start discovering in myself that I can use him, I can subdue them, I can coerce him, I can steal here, I can do that there, and so on. It's the serpent that starts appearing in me. The serpent is the quality of using others to their detriment and to my benefit. Is there a serpent in everyone? Yes, there is. Inside our heart, there is this darkest part called serpent. And now we're talking about the tree of the garden, the tree of knowledge, good and evil. Meaning, there is such an attitude toward the world where you can simply eat from all the fruits, no problem. It's where you participate in human life in a normal way with everyone, you interact, exchange the products of your labor, and so on. The way it was in ancient cultures. Primitive cultures, where everyone lives together. Yeah, in one commune, where everything is common and fine, helping each other, interacting. But when that serpent appears, then begins the battle for power, for sustenance, against each other, where a person wants more than what he needs for life. So what does the serpent say? It's forbidden for you to eat from all the trees. No, it's allowed. Meaning, live your life normally, on the animate level. And above that, no, it's forbidden to eat from this tree. Why? That's what the serpent says. Yeah, because when you'll taste this, you will understand you'll be on the level of the Creator, and he's actually right. Because only by receiving a great, tremendous pleasure into that ego called serpent, does that awaken a person, excite him. He starts experiencing what a tremendous pleasure it is to govern, to rule, to subjugate, etc., to live according to the serpent. Yeah, and without that, he doesn't feel it. If I just have a desire, I don't exactly know what that is, you know? It's an initial desire for some kind of pleasure, maybe, I don't know. And therefore, there's nothing forbidden here yet. And even the first time, when I only taste from the tree of knowledge, good and evil, I only taste it. I only start developing this desire inside myself. It's like someone offers me something. You give me some tasty piece of something. And you tell me, I brought you something from Mexico, from this place, it's something special. I look at it, I don't even understand what is it related to. What is it? You're saying this is a life-changing experience. I take this piece because simply I know that probably I'll get the same pleasure that you got from it. So tasting that apple or whatever that is for the first time, it doesn't breach anything, but it gives me the feeling of pleasure. And now I want already, after I took that bite for the first time. Now I want it. Yes, and the second time is already considered a sin. And what happens now? I tasted the pleasure in it, and now I either can or can't hold myself back. This is my battle now. And if I taste it again, it's a sin. That's how it always is in life. The first time, can a person stop himself after the first time? Can he? If he tasted it already, that's only if next to him there's a stick that's ready to calm him down. Society, something to strike him on the hand. Nah, that doesn't help. But society, that instead of this pleasure of egoistic reception will show him something else, that he can gain much more by using that ego that has awoken in him differently. If he aspires for bestowal, love, that's a greater pleasure. Yes, but you have to show him, otherwise, how can he measure one opposite the other? He won't be able to hold himself. And this is what the Pentateuch's about. Yeah, how through this inner battle a person advances until he achieves the degree of the Creator. It's an ingenious book, really. And therefore, the Torah comes from the word Torah, instruction in Hebrew, and also Torah from the word light. Right, because progress comes with the help of light, a higher energy. He said to the woman, "Did God say you shall not eat of any tree of the garden?" And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die." And the serpent said to the woman, "You will not die, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband, and he ate too. So it all began. Right. The ego, the serpent, begins filling itself with enormous pleasures, which are above the animate level, meaning on the human, social level. And that awakens in a person tremendous opportunities, possibilities to grow, evolve, to develop civilization. Meaning it's already coming out of that ancient society as if to a level where there's competition, all kinds of separations between people, the suppression of some by others. In short, a battle begins. Yes, this is the beginning of a person's development where he already enters the struggle. Dr. Leitman, we have to finish at this point. It's not really a good point to finish, right? It's like a point of suspense in a good movie. From now on, it's going to get really interesting. So I want to invite all of our viewers to our next show. Till next time, all the best.